Have you been thinking about making a move to South Florida or already living in South Florida and thinking about West Palm Beach? In this video, I'm going to tell you all about the ins and outs of living in West Palm Beach, Florida. And I'll tell you, this used to be like the poor relation to the town of Palm Beach, but now it's got all the sophistication of a big city and still has retained its small town, laid back feel. So stay tuned. I'm going to tell you all about it. Okay, so number one, I know this may sound boring, but number one is the weather. And it's the weather because it's the number one pro, but it's also the number one con. And it's the one thing that, having lived in South Florida all my life, it's the thing that I've had to help my friends through. I've had to coach clients through, and also just had to see people just leave because they couldn't handle it. So today I'm talking about this chart that I'm showing you. Will show, like, they have this tourism score here, and it shows how throughout the year the tourism score until April is like 7.1, but in August it's 3.1. And the reason for that is the oppressive heat in the summer, and it really is oppressive. So as much as it's beautiful in the winter, and I mean average temperatures in the 70s, no humidity, just beautiful sunny days and outdoor living, it's just like the perfect place to be. But if you're not fortunate enough to be able to leave like in June, by June, then you have to make it through our summers. And our summers we're a tropical climate, and it can feel like 100 degrees most days, 100% humidity, and you just have to figure out if you can deal with it. And that's not even talking about hurricanes at this point. But the one thing I will say, because this is about living in West Palm Beach, and that is that West Palm is a coastal town. It's got 7 miles of intracoastal waterfront with no real buildings built on the water side of the main road, which is Flagler Drive, which is a wonderful thing because we're so close to the ocean, just across the bridge to Palm Beach, and then about a half a mile and there's the ocean. And when you live on the Atlantic side of Florida, you get a lot of those ocean breezes that you don't necessarily get in the summertime on the West Coast. As it relates to dealing with summer and living in West Palm Beach, it's one of the best places to be. We even have a little bit more temperate weather here in Palm Beach County than in Broward, where Fort Lauderdale is located, or in Miami-Dade County, of course, where Miami is. So if you're fortunate enough to be a seasonal resident, then you'll probably leave sometime after Easter and Passover, say April, May. And if you're a full-time resident because you're moving here for a job, or you're selling your home up north and you want to live here, then the worst of it is, I would say, July, August, and September. That's when we have like 100% humidity, temperatures that feel like 100 degrees, a lot of rain, and the cone of fear when it comes to hurricanes. So the only thing I can say about the hurricanes is it's a fact of life. They are cyclical in my experience living here my whole life. You see, for a few years, you see them going up like the Carolina coast. And then 1-2 year period, we had 3 different hurricanes that came across like West Palm, Jupiter, the eye came through. And then we see them come up the Gulf and end up in the Panhandle or in Texas. So, I mean, it is a fact of life. I think that, people say the storms are getting stronger, but the biggest one that we saw in South Florida was back in the early 2000s with Hurricane Andrew. And as a result of that storm, which was horrible, the code changes were made first in South Florida and now throughout Florida and even throughout the Southeast because of that hurricane. So new construction, you're seeing stronger roofs, impact windows, impact doors, and wind resistance up to the Cat 5 winds that we saw in Hurricane Andrew. And most of the houses, like in West Palm, because it's primarily historic homes, south of downtown, there's some neighborhoods that you can see one of my other videos where I talk about these different neighborhoods. And most of these houses have been renovated, and they're renovated. When they are renovated, they're renovated to code. So most of them have impact windows. If you buy one that doesn't and you're going to do a renovation, then you'll put the impact windows in. And I think we've really learned a lot between Andrew and then the year when we had 3 hurricanes here, with grocery stores now have backup generators, gas stations have backup generators. Florida Power and Light has hardened the infrastructure throughout South Florida and then now all over Florida. So instead of seeing wooden telephone poles, you're seeing, cement poles. Instead of seeing traffic lights hanging on wires, you're seeing metal arms. A lot of communities have taken advantage of Florida Power and Light, giving them a break on the cost of hardening by putting their utilities underground, which makes a big difference in being able to have power afterwards. And then a lot of people are even putting backup generators in their houses. So I just really think that, it is what it is. We learn to live with it. I think South Florida is a lot more savvy and hardened after the storms that we've been through. And some of the other parts of Florida, they have older construction that hasn't been renovated and a different kind of terrain, where you have the Gulf Coast where it's more shallow, whereas we have more depth, and we have the Bahamas off of our coast and the Gulf Stream. I think it plays differently in the way the storms shake out. So that's all I can really say about the hurricanes, is you either have to learn to live with them. The other big challenge is wind insurance, because if you've got financing on your home, you are required by your lender to have both homeowners and wind insurance, and sometimes even flood insurance if your property is in a flood zone, which the flood maps have been reassessed recently. And over the last couple of years, our wind insurance has gone up by 50% for 2 or 3 years in a row. And we've lost a lot of insurance companies because of fraud in the assignment of benefit process from contractors doing roof repairs and blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on. But I did see a statement that was put out by the Florida Insurance Commissioner saying that, because they have been focusing on this the last year or so, and he expects there to see a flattening of the past increases as new companies are coming into the market. So hopefully that's going to be less painful going forward than it has been the last couple of years. So now that I've gotten the weather conversation out of the way, my number 2 pro/con, which actually is more pro than anything else, is just the general livability of West Palm Beach. Livability, walkability, accessibility. So West Palm is a coastal city, and it runs for about 7 miles along the Lake Worth Lagoon, which is also the intercoastal. But what's so special about the intercoastal along West Palm Beach is that it's very wide, because at one point it was a natural lake called Lake Worth. And so it's very wide, and there are 3 bridges that go across from West Palm over to the island of Palm Beach, which is also the town of Palm Beach. And that's where the beaches are. But that's also where all the wonderful restaurants and shopping and beautiful homes of Palm Beach's very wealthy residents are. And so it's got this great combination of access both to Palm Beach, but also most of the neighborhoods in West Palm are in the southern part of south of downtown. There's maybe 5 or 6 historic and not so historic neighborhoods, but all of them kind of feed into Flagler Drive, and then Flagler runs up to downtown. So you can ride your bicycle, you can walk, you can run. It's just a very outdoor, livable community. So I call this livability, accessibility, because if you live downtown in a condo on the waterfront, you have everything accessible, and there's tons of shopping, both in West Palm, shopping, eating, and also in Palm Beach. And a lot of events go on right on the waterfront downtown. So it's just a really livable, fun, and I think like young community. It has a lot of families. It has a nice balance of retirees, families, single people. And in the last few years, there has been quite a bit of development. Most of it has been good for the positive. And now there are just really great hotels and rooftop bars and pools. And It's a lot of fun, but it's not like you're in Miami Beach. It's more refined, more laid back, and just a very safe, livable community. So I didn't really have any minuses here, except to say that if you are living in a condo downtown, you have to keep in mind your condo dues can be quite expensive in these larger full service condominiums. And if you're living in a home, in the historic areas, either south or north of downtown, you have to be prepared that you're not going to have like a big yard like you might have had in the Northeast or in the Midwest. And also, West Palm Beach doesn't really have any canal networks. Like if you're living in another community north or south of West Palm, say in North Palm Beach or in Jupiter, there are a lot of canals. So there's homes where you can have your boat right in your backyard. And that's not really true in West Palm because it's all on the lake. And there are some marinas, and some of the houses that are on the waterfront do have docks, but it's a minority of homes that have that accessibility. So you probably are going to have to find, if you do want to have a boat, you're going to have to, find marina space for it to keep your boat. So I would say is the downside of condo living in downtown. And then also if you're living in a home or in a condo, you'd have to have access to a marina to keep your boat if you want to live in West Palm proper. Okay, so if you're enjoying this and you want to be notified as new videos come out, check out the subscribe button below and get notified when we have new videos. And then I'm also going to give you my telephone number here. We get calls all the time, texts all the time from people who want to talk about moving to South Florida. They don't live here, but they want to get more information. Maybe they want to have a virtual tour, and we love getting these calls and texts. We love having Zoom calls and helping you figure out where the right spot for you is here in South Florida. So feel free to call this number and call us anytime. We'd love to talk to you. So keeping that in mind, two things. First of all, I highly recommend that you sell your lawnmower before you come, because when you're used to cutting your own grass up north, that means, I guess, a few months, maybe 4 months during the year. Well, in the winter months, maybe every week and a half. But during the summer, you're cutting your grass every week. You're edging every week. You're trimming. You can see your plants will grow like 6 inches overnight sometimes. And so almost everyone has, if you're in a gated community or a gated golf community and you're in a HOA or a condo association, you're going to be in your dues, you'll be paying for your landscape. But if for instance, in West Palm Beach, if you're living in the historic area downtown, you're going to be responsible for your own lawn, and you will see that everybody in town uses a landscape company. So get rid of your lawnmower and you'll be signing up for a landscaper. And then the other thing I wanted to show you was, I'm just going to flash by here as I'm talking, but the beautiful thing about South Florida is we do have a lot of different plants and trees. These are some of my favorites: the Royal Poinciana, the Gumbo Limbo, the Tababui, and these are all beautiful blooming trees. Hibiscus. You can have citrus trees in your yard. You can have a mango tree. They even have dwarf mango trees, so you don't have to have a big tall tree. You can grow bananas. Also, in West Palm Beach, there is a place called the Mounts Botanical Garden. It's just west of town, and they have master gardeners there. It's like acres of beautiful landscaping that's all xeriscape to Florida landscaping, and you can learn so much about the plants. And then a couple times a year, they have plant sales. You can go over to Palm Beach, and they have the Society of the Four Arts has the most beautiful garden over the middle bridge. And it has a lot of little smaller gardens within a garden and a lot of very mature landscaping. And it's beautiful just to see what you can actually create with a smaller yard with our beautiful plants that grow so well here. And then another thing I'll tell you about is that down in Del Rey, there's a place called the Murakami. And there used to be a group of Japanese people that lived there. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they were they were growing pineapples. This is a long time ago, but the Murakami Museum and Gardens is there, and it has beautiful Japanese gardens that you can also see the different options that you have for your garden here in Florida. So I don't really know that I had a con here, except for that it is a transition. But once you make the transition, it's really enjoyable, and you can grow your vegetables and other produce, but you just have to know that the season is kind of the opposite of what you're used to if you're from the north. So that is number 3. So next, my number 4, I guess kind of a laundry list. I'm going to flash some pictures across here while I talk about this, but it's just things to do in West Palm Beach. Along the lines of what I was saying with accessibility and livability, with all the neighborhoods that are down south of downtown, as well as all the condo living and neighborhoods north of downtown and some just west of downtown. We have outstanding performing arts. We have our Kravis Center for the Performing Arts, and that's adjacent to something that used to be called City Place, but then it was Rosemary Square, and now it's called the Square, and that is like a shopping, dining experience where they're now building a couple of big condo developments there too. And they've planted it out. It's very shady and very attractive. So between the Kravis Center, where we have Broadway shows and performances, and then the Square just adjacent to that. And then when you go from the Square toward the main street of downtown, which is Clematis Street, that distance from the Square to Clematis has now filled in with just fantastic restaurants and shops. So you can walk from the Square, or they also have a trolley that can take you from the Square to Clematis Street. And then Clematis goes east and west and ends up down at the waterfront, where there is a park called the Nancy Graham Park. Used to be a library there, and they moved it in a couple of blocks into the city. And now this is where they have, during the season, the Green Market, which is a number 1 rated nationally green market for 3 years in a row. And it's really fantastic. And as popular and as large as it is, it's still super accessible. If you live in downtown, or if you live in a nearby town and you come in, it's super easy. You can even get, parallel parking or park in the garage. It's super easy. And there's a new district coming up where they're building a couple of new condos north of downtown, and it's called the Nora district, and it's north of the railroad is what it refers to. And they're redeveloping this whole area with shops and restaurants. And there's a park called Curry Park, and there's a large development going up there. A lot of the buildings around there were raised a long time ago and prior to the last real estate boom, and nothing ever happened. And now some things are starting to happen again, and the city is joining with these developers and redeveloping a lot of the waterfront and the older communities to the north of downtown. Downtown, we also have the Meyer Amphitheater, where they have performances throughout the season. The Antique Row Design District, which runs on Dixie Highway south of downtown, and that passes the museum, the Norton Museum. Some events, we have in December, we have a marathon, the Marathon of the Palm Beaches. We also have a great Christmas holiday celebration downtown, where they have Sandy, the Christmas tree. It's like the largest sand Christmas tree instead of a live tree. We have the Sunfest Music Festival that goes on in May. The Palm Beach Boat Show happens right on the waterfront in March and April. There are cycling groups that utilize the waterfront. We have the Historical Museum downtown, which has a lot of events. Palm Beach has tons of charitable luncheons and dinners and events throughout the social season. It's almost too much to talk about, but we have, if you have visitors coming, there's high-end resorts like the Breakers and several other really nice resorts in Palm Beach, as well as the new hotels that have gone up downtown. So it's just full of art galleries and shopping and really quality restaurants and food, and a great place to enjoy yourself any time of the year. It's a really livable city. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about just quality of life in West Palm. I think some people have the impression that it's The cost of living is higher, which I mean might be true as it relates to cost of property, cost to buy a home in West Palm. But again, we have a lower tax situation here, especially if you're homesteading and declaring Florida as your residence. So I just wanted to talk about the quality of life, as in jobs. I mean, we have been ranked post-pandemic a top city for job growth. We've gained this nickname of Wall Street of the South because so many financial services companies have moved here, hedge funds and investment advisors. We have a lot of ag-based business here. Nextra FP&L is the largest publicly traded utility company, I think, in the world, and they're based in Juno Beach. On the healthcare side, we have 5 world-class regional hospitals. We have hospitals here. We have the Cleveland Clinic, and the NYU Ken Langone Medical Group has moved to West Palm Beach. We have 5 major regional hospitals, 2 of them in West Palm. Good Samaritan Hospital just north of downtown, and then St. Mary's, which is a trauma center, which is just northwest of downtown. The VA has the headquarters for their regional healthcare network here in West Palm Beach. And we also have the Scripps Max Planck Neuroscience Institute that's in Jupiter, and that's gotten a lot of attention. So there's just a lot of attraction for businesses here. Business Development Board is very proactive and working with the cities and the employers that are considering coming here. And from a school perspective, I mean, when you think about kids, a lot of these things I've talked about already, but the Palm Beach County school system is the 10th largest in the country. And we have a school choice here in Florida. So we have a lot of magnet schools in West Palm Beach proper. There's feeder elementary and middle school to the School of the Arts, which is ranked nationally. We also have Suncoast High School, which is just north of us in Riviera Beach, that is a nationally ranked magnet school for engineering. And we have over 20 private schools. You know, the more growth we've had here, the more demand we've had for good schools, and you can go to the Palm Beach County School website to get more information on ratings for schools. And on top of that, we have a lot of fun things for kids. I probably could have put this under the livability, accessibility, but West Palm itself has a really great zoo, the Palm Beach Zoo. We also have a fantastic public golf course called The Park, which really heavily promotes golf for children. It's very family oriented. We have a science museum and aquarium just adjacent to the zoo, right in West Palm proper. At the north end of West Palm, we have the Manatee Lagoon, which is the science museum right on the Intracoastal on Lake Worth, where there's the outflow from the warm water outflow from the power plant at the port. And the during the winter months, the manatees come there and the kids love it. There's the Loggerhead Museum and Turtle Hospital. I'm not saying that right. In Juno Beach, there's the Bush Wildlife Center in Jupiter. There's MacArthur Park with kayaking and just beautiful beaches on Singer Island. So I could just go on and on. Rapids Water Park. So there's just tons of fun things when you have little ones and grandchildren. Lots of fun things to do and good schools for your kids. Number 6, outdoor lifestyle, outdoor beaches. The beaches in Palm Beach are just 5 minutes, 10 minutes over the bridge. And then just a little bit north, you've got the beach on Singer Island and MacArthur Park, Jupiter, Juno Beach, Lake Worth Beach. We just have a lot of beautiful beaches, all easily accessible from West Palm. And not to mention that the Gulf Stream waters are just the closest to the United States here in Palm Beach County, which means that we have this beautiful turquoise water that looks like the Bahamas, that on a beautiful day is just breathtaking. You'd think you were in the Bahamas. The other things we have from a sporting perspective is plenty of boating for sport fishing and inland fishing. There are over 20 public golf courses in Palm Beach County and 22 private courses. There's even a par 3 golf course on the ocean that's public. at the south end of Palm Beach. So you just go across the southern bridge from West Palm Beach, the South Bridge, and then just go a couple miles south and you can go to the par 3 golf course. Scuba diving, paddle boarding, kayaking, biking, running, the Flagler Drive waterfront, the 7 miles of waterfront was ranked one of the great runs in the United States, and it's beautiful. There's the Loggerhead Triathlon over the summer, which is in Jupiter. And we have our Palm Beaches Marathon. So just if you're an outdoor person and you're sporty and you love to do outdoor things, it's really, West Palm is all about it. Okay, so the only thing I didn't really talk about was traffic, which actually, I've lived from Miami to Jacksonville, so I have seen traffic, and I know friends that come from other areas and they know traffic. I don't want to jinx it, but we really have a manageable traffic situation. And I have had new friends and family that have moved here, and they say the same thing. So when it comes to West Palm, that Flagler Drive along the Intracoastal, the waterway, is a north-south, all water view. And then there's like 2 or 3 other main arteries inland from there, Olive and Dixie. And then maybe like about a mile west is I-95, which is our main freeway. I mean, most people know it because it runs the whole length of the United States. And then the next, like maybe a few more miles west is the Florida Turnpike. So the Turnpike goes more toward Orlando and is something you might take as an alternative to 95 to get to Miami, or you might take the Turnpike to get to the Keys. But I-95 is how you're going to get south. And so anyway, just to say that living in West Palm, when you're just, moving around West Palm, you're in Palm Beach, maybe you're driving up to Jupiter, you're going to take these interior roads. I do. I rarely get on 95 unless I need to go to Fort Lauderdale or I need to go down to Boca, then I'm taking 95. But I try to avoid it because we really only have those 2 throughways and the traffic can get a little crazy. But even then, it's probably not as bad as some places. But we don't have a lot of expressways is my point. Like even if you're in Miami, you've got all kinds of highways coming and going, but we just have 95 and the Turnpike. And then if you're just driving locally, you kind of use the internal local arteries, and they're really not that bad. I guess the bigger thing, the con of it is the trick is to know the bridge schedules, because in West Palm, you need to know the bridge schedules, because if you're going over to Palm Beach for business or for pleasure, each bridge, the North Bridge, the Middle Bridge, which is Okeechobee, or the South Bridge are on a different schedule. So like the North Bridge is on the half hour, so it's on the hour and the half hour. And then the Middle Bridge is on the quarter hour and the quarter till, and then the South Bridge is on the half hours again. So if you're coming back from somewhere, you got to come from 95, you got to cross 2 railroad tracks, and then you need to get to Palm Beach. You really kind of have to time yourself. And if you work in Palm Beach and you live in West Palm, you can get stuck sometimes because you forget to think, like, when does the bridge go up? And then you can, lose time in your schedule. So that was just something I wanted to point out, was the bridges. And in addition to the expressways, we have 2 rail lines, which we never really had this in South Florida before, but we do. We have the Tri-Rail, which is it's like the local train. It goes all the way to Miami, and it starts just north of West Palm, but it's kind of the local, and so it stops in every town, and that runs on the Amtrak tracks, which are the closest to 95. And then we have the newest thing is the Bright Line, which is a high-speed rail, and it goes as far north as Orlando. It will have a stop in Palm Beach Gardens, West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, and then Miami. And that runs on the more inner FEC tracks, which are the more commercial railroad tracks. So those are my only traffic issues, except that I will say that during the season, because the downtown is so popular, like when there's the Green Market and they have these different events that go on, like the Sunfest Music Festival, among other things. If you live in West Palm and you're south of downtown and you want to get through downtown or go a little north or whatever, you're just trying to navigate the area. And normally you might take Flagler as your pass-through road. When they're having these events, they end up closing down Flagler for a few days in the middle stretch there of downtown. So you've got to really know your roads. Usually if you know where you're going, you can just kind of make your way a little bit west to get around that and then get back on your normal track. So that would be my only thing, is that the seasonal closing of the roads when there are events, which has become very popular, can slow you down a little. And last but not least is our international airport, PBI, Palm Beach International, which is just west of 95 and a little bit south of downtown. And it's probably, from the historic neighborhood south of downtown, it's maybe a 10 or 15 minute drive to the airport. Palm Beach, about the same, 15, 20 minutes. And during season, it has a pretty good roster of nonstop flights, sometimes a little bit less in the summer, but you can pretty much use it for most things, which is really nice. And we're pretty spoiled about that. But if you need a flight that's not what you're looking for there, then the next best thing is you take 95 to Fort Lauderdale. And that's probably a good hour drive. And then if you were to take Miami International, that could be, you got to give yourself at least 2 hours to get down there. Even though the distance isn't that far, depending on the time of day, you could really get stuck in a number of traffic jams before you get there. So we really pretty much can use our airport. And the only other funny thing, the story I'll tell you about that is, because it is east, the flights fan out to the east over those historic neighborhoods and over Palm Beach from the Southern Boulevard north. And so the joke was, back in the day, they would say, they call it the Palm Beach pause when the flights were going over. Like, you'd be talking on the phone and you'd have to stop and say, "Just a minute, darling." Wait for the flight to go over and then continue your conversation. So they call it the Palm Beach pause. But I don't think it's quite as bad these days, because they fan the flights out more and take it to the west when they can, depending on the weather. But if you're right under the flight path of the airport, which some of those neighborhoods are, you do see the wheels of the planes. So that is one downside for that neighborhood. Okay, so I saved this last little creepy crawly one for last, because I think it's so funny. You think you know your critters and pests and things, but we are in a tropical climate, and we do have a lot of really weird creatures that you might not be familiar with. So on the positive side, we have curly tails and lizards that live in your garden. And I have met people that have moved here from other places, and they want to kill the lizards. And so I always have to tell them, my mother always said, your lizards are your friends because they eat the bugs. So we have these curly tails and these lizards. You'll find them in your yard, and they're your good friends. And you can even make friends with them, because they will live there for a long time. You'll get to know them. And then another bad thing that we have, which is bad to me, is these iguanas. The iguanas have taken over. I'm going to show you a couple of headlines that have run on the Palm Beach Post, because when we do have a cold day, when the temperatures get, it doesn't have to be freezing, but when they get cold enough, the iguanas will fall out of the trees and you'll see them laying on the ground. I always thought that they died, but they don't. They warm up and they come back to life. Something else that we have are these, they call them bufo frogs. They're like cane toads, and they look like your average toad, which I'm not really, frogs don't bother me. But these have large glands at their head, and the dogs like to chase them, and they can actually kill your dog. They can poison your dog with their venom that's in these glands on the top of their heads. So you want to keep an eye out for them. And possums, raccoons, alligators, if you can even imagine. I lived in the historic area south of downtown for 10 years. And one morning I woke up and I saw the police cars on the street in front of my house, which we had very little crime in our neighborhood. And I was thinking, what could be going on? And they were all in my neighbor's yard. And it had been a period of time where we'd had a lot of rain, and they had let water out of the Lake Okeechobee. And apparently a gator had come down that canal just south of us, that where they released the water. And somehow he had ended up in my neighbor's vegetable garden. So that was pretty crazy. I had never experienced that before. But if you live in a development that has a golf course, and it's more in the Western communities, you are going to see gators that live there, and people just get used to living with them. You don't want to walk your little dogs or your children anywhere near them, but they are there, and they were here first. So a couple other things is we have these things called no-see-ums. They come out like right at dusk. You can't see them, but they're biting you. We have mosquitoes. We have sometimes sea lice in the ocean when the water gets really warm. It's like a little insect that bites you and makes you itchy. And we do have termites. And usually, when you buy a house here, you have a termite inspection. And a lot of times, you end up having to tent your house because even though most of the houses are cinder block or poured concrete, some are wood frame, even Dade County pine, which is like an ironwood. But there still could be damage over a period of time from termites. So you always want to get your home inspected and, if necessary, get it tented. So anyway, those are just some of the many pests that I could tell you about. And thanks for listening. And I hope you enjoyed, if you made it all the way to the end. If you'd like to have more information on West Palm Beach, you can check out my channel and see the videos that I've done for other neighborhoods here in West Palm or other towns. If you think that maybe West Palm isn't the place for you, I cover all kinds of towns here in South Florida. So we'll see you again soon. And thanks for listening.